Well, good evening. Welcome to the May 9th, 2016 CONA members meeting. This is a candidates forum, and we're having the candidates running for the state Senate seat for District 23. My name is Kathy Benz. I'm president of CONA. Thank you for coming. Our meetings are now available as videos. They're created by Mike Tyson here, and he works feverishly through them. Pete Tyson, I'm sorry.
It's the tattoos on my face that threw her off.
I'm going to start over again. All right. Pete works feverishly through the night and gets them ready for me to post to our website the next day. So sometime tomorrow you'll be able to see the meeting in video. We also archive, that's somebody's cell phone. We also archive those meetings on our website, so you can go back and you can take a look at the videos of our previous meetings since I began doing this almost, I guess it was February or March of last year when I first came in as president. I started doing the video, and we archive them, and we also have resource pages on the website that provide information about a lot of topics relevant to our members and their interests, but also relative to specific meetings. So if you're looking for additional information on a meeting that we've had and the topic of it, go look at our resource page, because if there's information available, we'll have additional links for you to follow on that topic. And if you have information that you feel ought to be included, please contact us. There's, I don't see elected officials here. Oh, I'm sorry. Mrs. Zucker is here. She's running for the school board. Is there anyone else here that I've overlooked? Okay. We've got a little bit of business to do for CONA in the beginning here. One of the things that I'd like to have is the members of CONA here. We have a request for a nomination for Mary Butler to our board of directors. Now Mary is over here. Mary, would you like to come over here, please? And if you'll introduce yourself.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name is Mary Butler, and I am just looking forward to being with the board, being on the board. My background, I'm a native of Sarasota, Florida. I was born right here, Sarasota Memorial Hospital, and my family have been living here a long time. So yeah, a long time. So I've gotten a chance to work with organizations. I work for an organization called SCOPE, Sarasota County Open Plans for Excellence. I also am an asset-based community development practitioner, and I was taught by John McKnight. I'm very passionate about community, neighborhoods. You know, there's a saying that if the problem is in the neighborhood, and then so is the solution. And so we got to find solutions to problems in our own neighborhood. So I'm excited to be here and become part of the board if I'm given that opportunity. Thank you.
Mary is on the board of the Amaryllis Park Neighborhood Association. I'll entertain a motion to nominate Mary to the board of directors.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Will the members of CONA please raise your hands? So the election is confirmed for nomination. Now the process is that next month you will vote to confirm the election. This is just for the nomination. Are there any other announcements from the floor, other organizations or members that have something important that they'd like to have broadcast here at the meeting? Okay. Next Saturday, June 4th, CCNA, the Sarasota Coalition of City Neighborhood Associations, our sister organization at the county seat, will meet at Waldemere Fire Station at 9 a.m. It's a special extension from a workshop that they did just this past weekend, where they're trying to determine the top 5 issues faced by their members associations in order to begin discussion with the city commissioners on those 5 issues. And that brainstorming process began on May 7th. It'll continue for June 4th. The next CONA meeting is Monday, June 13, and we're going to have another candidate forum, which will be on local offices, the county commission, for the 3 districts for which commissioners are running. Our annual calendar is on our website. You can always check that in order to see in the future what's coming up for meetings, as well as the announcement for the current meeting. CONA has just been accepted by the Florida Neighborhoods Conference. Now, this is an organization that's been holding meetings every other year around the state, and it brings together neighborhoods in order to spend 3 days in a conference where they educate neighborhoods on issues and techniques for dealing with them, sharing problems, brainstorming. A lot of different related programs are presented. And CONA has applied to make a presentation as one of the organizations making a presentation. We are scheduled now for October 13. The conference is in Venice, and it goes from October 13, 14, 15. It's a 3-day conference, very much worth it. I've been to 3 of these conferences and always have come away with information that was really useful and helpful. So if you keep your eye out for that, that'll be in October of this year, from 13th, 14th, and 15th in Venice. I'm sure that you'll see some information coming out from the cities. Tonight's program is a forum for candidates seeking a state Senate seat for District 23. And 3 of our candidates are not present who have been invited. When I first issued the invitations in March, Ray Pilon told me he had a conflict. He was going to be out of state. That's the reason why he's not here. Greg Stubbe confirmed to me twice that he was going to be here, and the day before yesterday he sent me an email and said that something had come up and he was not going to be able to attend. Mr. Holder has had a medical emergency in his family. His mother has come down very ill. She's in an ICU, and I think he's on his way to Alabama at this point. So that's the reason why there are only 3 candidates right now. And right now I'm going to give you the format for the meetings. We have set questions that will be asked. Dan Lobeck is our moderator, and he will go through the CONA questions. After the CONA question, well, the CONA questions are essentially lightning rounds, most of them. We'd like to cover as many topics as we can, as quickly as we can. So we go for lightning rounds where there's a one-word answer mostly, unless we want to know more about why you answered the way you did. So that most of the issues, that if your issues are pretty much in sync with the objectives of the CONA members, we'll clip through those questions. If we want more information, Dan will be asking more. After that, we will go to questions from the audience and from our members that have been submitted. And they have to be written. There are index cards that are available for you all to write down any question that you want asked. As long as it's not a repetition of a question we've asked already, it will be asked. And if you think of something that you want to put down as a question, raise your hand and somebody here will see it and bring you an index card. And then once you finish, if you'll raise your hand again, somebody will come and pick it up. Now I'd like to let the candidates have 1 minute each in order to introduce themselves. I'm going to start down at this end.
Who else?
Testing.
Question?
It works.
Okay.
My name is Rick Levine. I'm running for the State Senate, District 23. I've lived in Sarasota since 1978. My wife and I came here when we were very young, got involved with our community early on. We lived in a U.S. Homes developed area called Tamaron at the time. And after U.S. Homes vacated, there was a homeowners association. And I was the first treasurer there for 4 years. Then I was the 5th president of the Tamaron Homeowners Association. And I was the only one that was re-elected, so I served 2 terms. But during my administration, and CONA was involved, we had this thing called deed restricted community. And we actually changed our bylaws and we implemented that. And I had homeowner association presidents all over Sarasota, Charlotte County, and around the state. How did you do it? How did you do it? And that's where we started back in the early 1980s. My minute.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Frank Cirillo. First off, I would like to thank the CONA Association and everyone here for coming out tonight. I'm a 3rd generation Floridian. On Friday, I graduated from the University of South Florida with bachelor's degrees in economics and political science. My top 3 issues are the environment, our education system here in Florida, and the economy. Beyond that, more locally, there are very specific issues that it comes to the entire district, as this is a very large district. District 23 is all of Sarasota County and Western Charlotte County. When it comes to Sarasota, some of the most important issues are basically cleaning up the homeless issue and helping curtail the heroin epidemic, which is a very serious issue right now that we're hoping to deal with on all levels. When it comes to Venice and areas south of Sarasota proper, development and smart growth are something that are very key. Also, when it comes to having better transportation infrastructure and better public infrastructure for our public access to libraries and other things, such as happens. I'll talk more about some of the other issues later.
Hi, I'm Nora Patterson. I know almost everybody in here because I've come to CONA meetings for years. I was your county commissioner for 16 years and a city commissioner prior to that for 8 years. I want to say thank you so much for coming and tell you that you can learn more about me on my website, which is norapatterson.com. I gave you each a little piece of material on me. It says the wrong district. It says 28. because it got changed in all the litigation and arguments about how the districts in fact would come out. I'm a 45-year resident of this area. I love my years in public service. I think that I made a positive difference for the community. And in fact, I'm running for this seat because I think I can continue to make a positive interest for positive influence and make this community prosper a little more than it has. Jobs, the economy, diversifying it, and the school system and the university system, which I think really are married to economic issues, will be my top issues, but I've got all kinds of others and insufficient time to talk about them. Thank you.
And now I'd like to introduce Dan Lobeck, who's going to be our moderator. Dan's an attorney practicing law in Sarasota County for condominiums and homeowner associations mostly. He's been very active in the area of land use planning and issues related to the county and the city for a very long time. Dan comes from a background where he's very familiar with legislative issues and planning in the state, having been the representative for a state representative. He's a graduate of Florida University of Florida, and he's the president of Control Growth Now.
Thank you very much, and thanks to those of you that took from your valuable time to learn more about a very important decision, and that is who to support for election to the state senate. Just to depart for a minute, I think, do we have 2 Republicans and 1 Democrat? Mr. Cirillo in the middle is running unopposed as a Democrat right now in your primary, and the other 2 of you are running in the Republican primary. And then, of course, there'll be that's in August, is that correct? 30th. August 30th, and then the general election will be the same as the presidential election in November. But I want to thank our candidates. Let's give them a round of applause. And I always say those that are able to make the time, perhaps other candidates, at least 2 of them had good excuses, but those that do take the time and are willing to step forward, answer some tough questions, deserve a measure of elevated consideration just for that. So let me say that on behalf of CONA. And thank you to CONA for the opportunity to help you moderate this meeting. We have set questions. They were prepared by CONA. I had input, I think, on the 2 or 3 of them. But those of you who were here at our last meeting for candidates for the House of Representatives will recognize most of these questions. It was determined by CONA that these do strike at some of the central issues, and we're going to present them again for different and new answers, I presume, from the candidates here today. Starting off, and as Coffee indicated, it starts with a lightning round pretty much on most of these questions, yes or no. Very difficult for a politician to answer a question yes or no. I know. But we ask you to do that, and we'll have follow-up on some of these questions. The first couple questions deal with elections, something we're into here with this election, but would you vote for a state law that would change all municipal city elections to November of every even-numbered year? And actually, let me pass this one around.
Just go right there.
Oh, you have it there? Okay. Oh, we had 3 mics?
The one on your left doesn't work.
So we'll just pass this one.
Yeah, so yes or no, would you vote for a state law that would require all municipal elections be in November of even-numbered years?
Where do you start, me?
Start with you.
No.
No?
How's that for like?
Very good.
Yes.
No. And we got a yes, I think, for Mr. Cirillo, and the follow-up question is, how does the principle of home rule for cities play into your answer? What's that?
When it
Just
comes,
you.
when it comes to to home rule, I think it's important that we try and basically have increased voter turnout. So if our elections are on the same date and time as our presidential elections, I don't see why we would want to have our elections be on an off cycle. So whether that be at a different time in the year or at a different date in November. People need to have convenience when it comes to elections, and if they have to vote on multiple days of the year, currently as it stands, voting is not a national holiday. You have to take off work, which means you lose wages, that means lost productivity, that means that you don't have that specific date and time to go somewhere else and do what you will instead of voting. So.
Okay. And Nora just really wants to explain her answer on this one. We'll depart for a second on that.
Thank you. 50% of our population votes absentee. It's really not very hard. You call the supervisor of elections office, say, I'd like an absentee ballot for such and such a date, and it comes to you and you put it in the mail. Also, March, when the city of Sarasota has elections, happens to be when almost everybody's in town. November, not so much. So I do think home rule is extremely important. I think whether you think it should be in November or August or wherever should be left up to the municipalities.
And Rick, it's enough. We got lots of questions. And Rick is basically agreeing that it ought to be up to each city to decide their own role.
Correct.
Very good. Second, on elections, open primaries. I'd like to ask you about this. Those are election systems that some states, such as Louisiana, have, in which all candidates for a particular office are listed on the ballot with their party identifications. And during this type of primary, all voters are allowed to vote for candidates regardless of their party affiliation. So independents, Republicans, Democrats, all get a chance to vote. The top 2 candidates for any office then go to a runoff in the general election. Would you support changing our election system to provide for such open primaries for state and local offices in place of partisan primaries? Yes or no?
The answer is yes.
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 Thank you. Okay, next topic of particular interest to me, and I think a lot of other people, on growth management. Florida used to be known and praised for its strong growth management laws. In recent years, however, the Florida legislature has repealed growth management effectively, leaving it only to local governments. In some cases, the state legislature has even restricted local governments, such as prohibiting limits on development for reason of traffic congestion. Some critics blame this on the undue influence of developers on state legislators. Now, this is the yes or no question. Actually, it's support or oppose. Do you support or oppose the reversals on growth management enacted by the legislature? Do you support or oppose them? The changes on growth management that's been enacted by the legislature? Okay.
Oppose.
Is this wrong?
Oppose most of them.
Oppose.
Okay, since you all answered oppose, you have a chance to follow up, because it's only for the people that said oppose that we then ask, what would you do differently on growth management? Starting with you.
The word responsible comes up every time. If you're going to have a city, a county develop, you have to have responsible growth management. That means if you're going to build homes, build commercial centers, you have to have the correct infrastructure, the correct environmental studies to make sure that everything can flow properly. It cannot be one-sided, where it's in favor of only builders who buy politicians. It has to be also what the community wants. The community has input. What I've seen over the years is that communities have less input, politicians have more power, business interests have more powers because they're using their money to buy off politicians. I'm not a politician. I can't be bought off. Politicians can be bought off all the time, whether it be on a city commission, a county commission, or at the state legislative level.
I would agree completely with Rick's answer, but I would also like to add that if we basically have irresponsible growth, especially when it comes to public infrastructure, and especially how public funds are used for public infrastructure. We can have development that is not being supported by public growth. So whether that means if we have roads that go unfunded, which then increases our traffic congestion problems, if we don't have transportation options besides our public roads, then we basically overburden our already burdened public transportation system, which is basically reliant on our roads. And we also need to have more local input, like Rick was saying, whether that's at our county or our city level. It's basically the government by the people are going to know how they want their community development more than anybody in Tallahassee will. So we should lead, especially when it comes to development, have control to our cities and to our counties.
Growth management has become a pendulum. About 2 years before I ran for the city commission, my husband and Mr. Lobeck were moving all around this area talking about growth management because there had been some very, I think, irresponsible projects all over the place that had been approved with absolutely no constraint from the state. My husband's argument was, we're working on growth management, we can do better than this. And a pretty decent form of growth management where people reported the developments that they wanted to the DCA at the state level, and they analyzed whether the facilities were there, the roads, the schools, responsible things took place, and areas had an option if they were a municipality to complain about something the county might be doing to them, or the county might be doing to another county. And that became pretty expensive. It got really complex. The pendulum swung way over here, and the folks, the developers, the builders went into revolt. Now, they could have trimmed it, they could have made it more reasonable, but still left growth management in place. It's pretty much not in place today. And we had one perfect example of this. It was a road at a busy intersection that was at capacity, and a developer wanted to put a Walmart grocery store there, and all the neighborhoods turned out said they're going to use our little neighborhood streets to get to and from the grocery store. You're ruining our neighborhood. Well, the truth is, when you approved it, they got to do it anyway, even if you said no, because they legislated something called pay and go, which meant you could pay this tiny little bit for your share of a broken intersection to fix it, which was not nearly enough to fix the intersection, and the people would get to go no matter what. So that's what's in place today at the state level. It needs to be addressed, and I believe someday the pendulum will swing in the other direction.
Thank you, Johnny.
Is there any follow-ups?
Yeah, actually, this next question may give you an opportunity for follow-up, because it's on a very specific change that was made to state law, and Nora addressed it a little bit. But I want to ask you, again, yes or no? Actually, then we'll let you each elaborate to the extent you haven't yet on this. I think Nora may have just answered it, but do you agree specifically with the change in state law that now prohibits a local government from using traffic congestion as a reason to say no to a development? Do you agree with that change or not?
I don't agree with that change.
And why?
Because transportation, and we're so dependent on vehicles here. We don't have what I call an elaborate transit system. So how they're putting roundabouts in and traffic flows, these traffic studies, whoever's doing them, they're not doing a very good job. I can tell you that. There's lots more congestion coming into Sarasota than ever before. And it's not just during the, let's say, the height of the season in the winter months. I see it also too in the spring and the summer. Now they've tried to build different roads to alleviate some of the traffic congestion, but go up Monterey at certain hours. Go up I-75 at certain hours. The traffic is not flowing as properly as it could, as it should. It's just not happening.
Again, I also oppose and agree with much of Rick's answer, and would like to add on that if you already have a development that puts a new burden on a road that's already congested, How are you going to get from point A to point B? It's just not going to happen. If the road is already congested and you add more congestion to it, that just makes the problem worse, not better. So I think it was very silly of the legislature to enact that law, and it doesn't make any sense from a practical standpoint, let alone a legislative standpoint.
Yeah, I've already said my piece.
Thank you. Brevity by a politician, that's always appreciated. More so than with some of these questions, perhaps. Amendment 1 is something that's been talked about a lot. That was the amendment to the Florida Constitution that requires that a certain amount of money be set aside from real estate transfer taxes to purchase and conserve environmental lands. Do you agree, yes or no, with those who claim that the Florida legislature betrayed the voters by using too little of this tax to buy environmental land and too much for administrative and budget purposes?
Yes.
The answer is yes.
That one deserves a longer answer, but I guess more yes than no.
Would you be willing, to, yes or no, to strengthen Amendment 1 to assure that the funds go to land acquisition by another constitutional amendment? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, to amend it, it would go on the ballot.
Yes.
So would I support it going on the ballot? I suppose. It was not well drafted in the way that people thought that it actually read.
Again, yes, but you need to explain this answer, because if the way it's put on the ballot basically favors developers and that the land that is purchased, they don't care if it is purchased or if it's not actually environmental land that would matter to be preserved. You'd have to make sure that the language is properly written so that the intention of the law and the ballot initiative would be that the voters would want to have.
The answer is yes. In order to preserve Florida as a beautiful place to be, and Florida to be preserved as an environmentally beautiful state, more balance has to be put into this situation. And as it is right now, if you have developers overrunning everything and you tear up the environment, our beautiful Florida is not going to be our beautiful Florida. I was coming down here today and I looked at the view. That's called ugly development to me. Right on the street. And they say it's $800,000 to $5 million units. It's called ugly, ugly. That's not what I call beautiful environment.
Final question on Amendment 1. Would you support, yes or no, using Amendment 1 funds, because the tax passed,